Nobody is ready for what's about to happen to the Boston Bruins as this game against the Toronto Maple Leafs set some people ablaze. We're going to be talking about this game as well as what happened in this game that is making Bruins fans' reaction very interested about this game in specific. We're going to be talking about all of this here in this video. Before we get into it, though, we noticed that 70% of you guys watching right now are not subscribed to the channel. If you're looking for a spot for all of your Boston Bruins news, you're in the right spot. Hit the sub button. Join me here on the channel. We're covering everything that this team has to offer as we head towards the trade deadline. And with this game, a lot of stuff seems to be going down over the next few days. And we're under just under 2 weeks away from the NHL trade deadline. But I want to talk about this game first because this is a prime example of the Boston Bruins season and how bad it has been. The game started off pretty good, where the Boston Bruins were ultimately in the game, taking off a very big lead, and that's where we kind of thought, hey, are the Bruins back? I mean, kind of a big ask for the Boston Bruins to go out here, win against the Toronto Maple Leafs with a roster that is not at all to the level of this Boston Bruins, of the Toronto Maple Leafs team, but when you see your guys like David Pastrnak, Morgan Geekie, Brad Marchand, Elias Lindholm, the top two lines, the guys that almost seemed like they actually wanted it here in this game. David Pastrnak coming in with 3 points, and we'll get to the box score here in a moment, but it really did seem like, hey, this Boston Bruins team seems to acknowledge that we're not in a playoff spot. We're not going to be in a playoff spot if we don't start to win now, but this loss was all due to them. The Maple Leafs did come back, but the Bruins seemed to collapse and just couldn't stop the bleeding after the Bruins let up that first goal against the Maple Leafs. But the box score was not horrible in this game. We saw, the usual positive, the usual negatives on the hockey stat card there. But when we're going to look at the box score, Jeremy Swayman, once again, not the greatest game on his part of things. 5 goals on 24 or 29 shots, and an 828 save percentage. Really seeing too many 800s for Jeremy Swayman and the save percentage aspect of things here. But apart from, the usual suspects, David Pastrnak, Brad Marchand, Mason Lohrei getting 2 assists here in this game, we didn't see really too much. Morgan Geekie making a point for some other teams that could be scouting him here, and we're going to get into that in a moment about the scouts that were at this game because it was an insane amount of people looking at some of the trade baits here from this Boston Bruins team, as we know that, we're kind of waving the white flag at this point. Don Sweeney brought out another insane statement that I will get into once again in a moment here, but we did see some concerning factors in this game. Number one being a little tweak to Jeremy Swayman after but in the TV timeout, was stretching something out. It was a bit slow to get up before it went to commercial break, and nothing coming from that apparently just yet. But we've been able to see from the Boston Bruins that even if things don't come out, things can be a serious problem for this team. So that's something we're going to be keeping an eye on here. But right now, it seems like this could be something that is good to go. Hopefully, in that what is the case. But another concerning one here. The top trade bait for the Boston Bruins and Trent Frederic left this game and did not return after a hit from Jake McCabe. Now, this is a bit of a concerning aspect because the Bruins, if we are waving the white flag, and from what Don Sweeney continues to say, we really still don't know yet, it is going to be a big way to lose your top trade candidate that you're going to use to retool, rejig, rebuild even. We don't really know yet what the stakes are going to be for this team, but Trent Frederic has been a guy that many teams are having a radar on, and I'm going to make a video tomorrow, or a video coming out tomorrow, I should say, about another team reportedly gaining interest on Trent Frederic after a recent injury to that team, so stick around to find out who that is, and a very familiar team that we've been talking about quite a bit when it comes to Trent Frederic, but things may be on the table now where that might not be an option. If Trent Frederic does not, continue to stay healthy, if he's out for any significant amount of time, this could be something that the Bruins are going to lose out a major piece on if they choose, once again, not to re-sign him and ultimately end up letting him walk in free agency for nothing. That could be a concerning aspect here. But before we kind of move into that aspect of, the trade candidates here, I want to pull up this tweet here that Ty Anderson put out. And this is from his notes on his phone, I would assume. But this is a big reason as to why the Bruins have not been able to, finish games off, why they've not been able to get these wins. And if you're looking at this list of goals allowed in the final 2 minutes of a period from the Boston Bruins, these are points where you need to shut teams down. In this final 2 minutes of a period, that's where games are won. The momentum can shift drastically if a goal is scored in the final 2 minutes of any period. If it's the first, the second, and especially the third, like we saw here tonight, the 46 seconds left in the third period is Pontus Holmberg scoring that goal, sending it to overtime, and Mitch Marner eventually scoring that goal. the Bruins had that game won until that point, and as soon as we saw that goal go in the third period, the end of the third period, I should say, I almost knew that game was over, and it was not going to be going in the Boston Bruins' favor. So this is just kind of another aspect of how this season is going so downhill for the Boston Bruins, and how things just don't end up working. But I feel like this is just kind of another egg in the basket of the Boston Bruins, and it's been a very familiar thing, unfortunately, this season. But one thing that we're going to be getting a lot more of is trade reports over the next few days. And coming into this, no update on Trent Frederic is obviously not a great sign yet. It could be a lot worse. It could be announced right away that he is going to be missing some time, and that is not the case yet. But from what we're seeing, and usually when we get no update, that's not the best sign that it could possibly be. So this is something I will have an update on again tomorrow. I'll probably have 2 or even 3 videos tomorrow kind of covering everything that we've seen here from this game and going from the trades as well. And Frederic, this is a very concerning one that I think we want to kind of take a look at. And looking at what he's done in his season so far, not the greatest, 15 points in 56 games, but he's been a player that a lot of teams are still going to keep an eye on. He's almost a player that we know that if he's in any different scenario, it could be a very, very different type of player, and that really just seems to be the way for Trent Frederic. We saw career numbers last year, and ultimately just this year, nothing is clicking, not really getting a firm line, I guess we could say, at the beginning of the season, and then stemming from that, everything just seemed to be going in the opposite direction that Trent Frederic wanted. But another guy who did get a goal tonight, and someone who's been very, very hot since December, is Morgan Geekie. He is once again another trade candidate for this team, with being an RFA at the end of the season, and depending on the way that the Bruins are going to kind of go from here in the trade deadline, heading into the retool or rebuild in this offseason, Morgan Geekie could be now one of the top trade candidates if Trent Frederic is out for quite some time. Teams are going to be hesitant on him. Morgan Geekie may be the next best option, because the way that he's been playing as of late, and I believe tied for 4th in the most goals since December, something along the lines of that, and a crazy number. He's been putting up some pretty good points, 30 points in 53 games, and now playing with David Pastrnak certainly helps, but he's been able to hold his own on this as well, and at 26 years old, you have to wonder if this could be an option that the Bruins try to pivot to and make sure that he stays with this team. But if the Bruins get a good price on him, and if many teams are saying, hey, let's overpay for him, there's going to be an option where we do see Morgan Geekie gone from this team at the trade deadline. Now, is it likely? It really depends on how the next few games for the Boston Bruins go, but I'm very curious to see how things like this really do end up playing out over the next few days. And with some scouts at this game, that when we're looking at a very, very big crowd of teams, including St. Louis, Winnipeg, Ottawa, New York, Chicago, San Jose, Detroit, Florida, Columbus, Colorado, Tampa, and Vancouver having scouts present at this game, it does seem like the Bruins are going to be getting a lot of attention on many players, and some that we're probably not even thinking of right now. Because when we're looking at this game as well, we know there's not going to be very many scouts there scouting the Maple Leafs players, as they're going to be full buying, once again, as they've been for the past few years. So realistically, when we're looking at a lot of these teams, and looking how most of these teams are really playing out to be, there's, I would say, all except 2 teams are trying to go for the playoffs here in this season. I would say all except Chicago and San Jose, maybe. And depending on New York, a lot of these teams are seeming like, hey, we're going to want to try and buy this season, get into the playoffs. And the Bruins have some players that can make this happen. So there's going to be a lot of eyes on this team for the next few games. And the Rangers are one team in specific who called someone up that the Bruins may be interested in, that I'm going to have another video on either tomorrow or the day after. So be sure to keep a heads up for that as well, that a lot of Bruins fans are going to like this guy that they're linked to, and will certainly help out the retool. But one thing kind of before we close this video off, Don Sweeney came out on the broadcast today in the intermission, I believe it was, and had this to say: we're still in the hunt. We'd like to stay there. We're playing both sides of the street right now. Now, when he's saying that regarding the path to the deadline, I don't think that this is at all the answer that you want to hear as a Bruins fan. And certainly I don't. And I want to know what you guys think in the comments below. What do you guys think about this quote? I really do think that Don Sweeney is trying to make a situation that is not good. He's certainly seeming like, hey, we're still in the playoffs. But the way that I saw this team play tonight, and kind of manipulate this game and how the game progressed as it got, especially later on in the game and the lead that they blew, I think there's zero hope that this team would even win a game in the playoffs, let alone a series, let alone going past the first round of the playoffs. So, when we're looking at this, I hope Don Sweeney's just trying to use this as a tactic for other teams to say, try to raise their price saying that the Bruins are kind of going to want to keep these players because we're still pushing for them, and hopefully teams are going to have to overpay. But you know, these GMs are not dumb. They know exactly what Don Sweeney's doing here. They know exactly what kind of hand he's trying to play, and ultimately, they should just go ahead and fold this hand because it's certainly not the one that they wanted here. So let me know what you think about this. Obviously, you should not be happy about this game. There's nothing to be happy about unless we're embracing the tank and going for this higher pick. That's the only positive to take away from this. But realistically, I think we're going to see a lot more of this, ladies and gentlemen, as we kind of get past the trade deadline, even as this team is likely going to get worse with the players that are going to be shipped out. But that's a time for later on. So like I said, stick around to see what we got coming from the trades tomorrow and all these reports that I'm going to be covering in the videos tomorrow. But that's all I got in this video. If you did enjoy, give it a like, hit the sub button as well. And we're very close to 6K. And if you're at this point in the video and you're not subscribed, be sure to do so. You're obviously looking for your Bruins news, and we're trying to get to that 6K goal. And hopefully by the trade deadline. It's a bit of a wild goal, but I know we can do it. But like I said, that's all I got. Thank you for watching. Hope you have a great day. See you later.